All right, students. So, the past couple of notes we've gone on, we've been learning about how to smash up rock, move it around, etc. Now we're going to figure out what we do with all that broken up rock and stuff um, once we have it. And that's called deposition. So, basically, when you've got like a river, um, or a glacier or something, once they lose energy, they drop the sediments that they're carrying. So pretty much this is the opposite of erosion, where we remove stuff, we deposit it. So like on a river, you'll have one side of the river that's cutting stuff, and the other side where it's just dumping stuff in the river bed. Okay, and that would be deposition. The thing about deposition is the larger the sediment, the more energy it takes to move it, which should make sense. It takes a whole lot more energy to push an elephant than to push a mouse. Okay, so for all practical purposes, that means that the bigger it is, it will get dropped first. So if you have a huge rock like this one, it will get dropped off first. And if you have tiny little grains of sediment that are about the size of flour, that'll be dropped off last. And of course, the faster the moving water is, the more energy it will have, the larger the stuff it will move. Okay? So, um, my question is, if a layer of stream deposited sediment contains inch-sized pebbles, relatively how fast was the water moving? Was it moving really, really fast? Was it moving really, really slow? Was it somewhere in between? Think about it for a second. Well, the answer is it's kind of in between. If it was a really fast moving stream, we would get cobbles, which are several inches or larger in size. If it was a slow moving stream, all it would be able to carry would be silt and sand. Therefore, it's kind of like a medium strength stream. Okay? And when those streams enter a large body of water, they spread out because it's got more room. It's no longer constricted to the narrow stream bed, but when it spreads out, it loses its energy. And when that happens, it deposits its stuff in what we call a delta, as seen here. Uh, they're a fan shaped pattern, and they're called delta for a reason. It comes from the Greek letter. This is the letter delta. It may look like a triangle, but it's actually a Greek letter. Um, okay, and it actually does resemble a delta quite a bit. This, by the way, is by far the most famous delta in the entire world, the Nile River Delta. Okay, now deltas are part of the Earth, and those parts of the Earth are known as landforms. Uh, Pretty much it's any natural feature of the Earth's surface. So, we've got an island here. That's a landform. Arch, landform. Boulder, landform. Peninsulas, isthmus, etc. They're all landforms. You know, they can be small, they can be large. Anything that's natural and part of Earth's surface is a landform. Um, as far as we're concerned, there are three main types that we're going to be going over. First, we have mountains. Now, you may say, oh, but I know what a mountain is. There's actually a definition to it. So, it's steep sided, so it's kind of jagged and imposing. And it has a sudden increase in elevation, so it goes up. Now, how far it goes up is up to debate. Generally, the definition from the USGS, the guys who, the United States Geological Service, which does geology, they say that in order to be a true mountain, it has to be above 1,000 feet and come to a peak. Otherwise, it's not a mountain. Now, it's not to say that you couldn't call stuff that is smaller than that a mountain. It just wouldn't be officially a mountain. Okay. Then there's plateaus. Plateaus are kind of like mountains, except they don't have a peak. They're not pointy. So instead of pointy, it's flat. So imagine if you were to take the entire area, just shove it straight on up, that would be a plateau. And lastly, we have plains, which should be the most familiar landform to you all, considering we live on a plain. It's pretty much, it's flat, or relatively flat. Around here, it's not quite perfectly pancake smooth, but it's close enough to be considered a plain. Plains are generally found on the inside of continents because they're shielded from all the collisions that happen on the edges of the continents. So the inside generally gets worn down to a nice flat area. Now in the United States, there are 8 to 9 different regions. You will be doing a coloring activity just to get in your head where exactly the regions are. There are 9 of them. First, going from east to west, we have the coastal plain. Coasts, generally, at least really close to the coast, are flat, mainly because it has all these bits and pieces of like the seafloor and other stuff that get added to the edge of the continent as time goes on. Then we have the Appalachian Mountains, which I actually used to live in. They are very, very old mountains, and so unlike normal mountains where you think of they're very high and jagged, they're so old that they were basically worn down, and they're smooth and rolling hills, pretty much. Then we've got the interior lowlands. You could consider that a plain. It's a little bit higher than the plains, though, not quite as flat. Just a smidge north of that is the Canadian Shield. This is kind of like the core of the continent. It is where they contain the oldest rocks, actually. In fact, some of the oldest rocks in the world were found up in Canada. Then, of course, is the Great Plains, which we all know and love because we're kind of living in there. The Rocky Mountains are neighbors to the west. Of course, if you've ever been to Colorado. And actually, to be perfectly honest, the Black Hills themselves are technically an offshoot of the Rockies, of a very distant branch of the Rockies. Then we have one of the weirdest landforms regions in the United States called Basin and Range. Pretty much, it's a set of mountains and valleys. So you go, if you were to drive across it, you basically go up and down a mountain for like 5-10 miles. Then for like 20 miles, you would have a pancake smooth plain, up a mountain, down a mountain, another plain, up a mountain, down a mountain. It's really weird looking. In fact, it looks almost like it's corrugated, the entire area. I used to work as a park ranger at Great Basin National Park over here in Nevada. And lastly, there is a coastal range, pretty much in California, that is right along the edge here of the Pacific Ocean. So please, you'll get one of these to color. Do your best and make it look nice like a map. We'll be hanging some of these in the lobby, so do your best to make it nice. Okay? And here are the various areas and the colors that you should draw them. Okay. Oh, and Canadian Shield should be gray. Sorry. or black. So that's it for deposition of landforms. Hope you enjoyed it.